Okay, so reading passage 2, I think it's test 2. So back to the Future of Skyscraper Design, what do we have? Find the information, which paragraph, and actually quite a nice big summary. I like to see this because these are usually slightly easier. So of course we're going to do the summary first, and hopefully that information will help us with one or two of those. Sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. So we're going to look at this definitely. Ventilation, 19th century. Hospital wards. There is a name over there. We're going to find that. What else can you see? There's 19th century again. Who knows, maybe the whole thing is 19th century. We don't know. There's a lot of 19th century. We'll see. But that helps us over there. And that's quite nice because we can see where it begins and where it ends. Now, they've divided it into two paragraphs. Usually that means it's from two paragraphs on in the text. But we'll see again. So let's find all of these. John Shaw Billings, Professor Alan Short, London and Paris. So Professor Alan Short is right at the beginning over there, but then it goes on and on and on with Short. So Short is everywhere. So that's not the name that we really need. We need to find that John Billings. What was it? John Shaw Billings. And just scan for that. And then remember, you're also looking for London and Paris. And you need to just scan, 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 scan. Could be anywhere, but eventually we find it over here. Let's keep on looking for 19th century or London and Paris to see where it ends. There's 19th century. Keep on scanning. 19th century again, and we see London and Paris over there. So that's a bit strange because immediately we can see there's a paragraph there, and a paragraph there. So that's 3 paragraphs, but this is only 2 paragraphs. So that means one of two things. Either they've only taken it from 2 paragraphs. So the first one is D. So this is D, and then they've skipped E and gone straight to F. Or they've joined D and E in this one and gone to F in that one. So we need to just be aware of that. Remember, they can do whatever they want. Okay, so we need to then look at the keywords in a bit more detail and find as many keywords as we can. So hospitals I think is quite nice. Ventilation, it's these nouns that are uncommon nouns that they're only going to be talking about ventilation when they're talking about ventilation and nothing else. Patients suffering from, patients and patients, maybe we can look for patients. Air, this is all about ventilation, so maybe not air. Modern operating theatre, that's a nice noun. Energy. More patients, patients. So patients is everywhere. Areas, it's a bit general. They could paraphrase areas easily. Alright, so let's go and look for hospitals, ventilation, patients, theatre, energy. So there's the hospitals. There's patients over there. Let's take another look. I'm still sort of trying to figure out what they've done here, where they've taken this from. Ventilation I didn't see. Did I see ventilation? There's ventilation there. There. So we're in the right paragraph. It's just which sentence now. And the thing is, patients ends up over there. I think I saw other patients even. It was other patients, so it's... And there's harm, I saw harm. So that's definitely this whole thing over here, harm other patients. So that tells me, that's the last sentence of that. That tells me they've taken this from D, and then this is from E. Now, I don't know why they've done this. This is not fair. Why did they join that into 2 paragraphs? That should be a new paragraph. It should look like that. But they've joined them for absolutely no reason. Just to try and confuse you, I guess. Alright, so let's try and find these two, and then, well, let's just confirm that this is paragraph E then. So we want modern operating theatres and something about energy. Modern day computer controlled operating theatre. And I actually don't see energy over there. So let's come back to that. Let's try and get a couple of these answers done now. Right. He examined the work of John Shaw Billings, who influenced the architectural something, this will be a noun, of hospitals, the architectural something of hospitals, to ensure they had good ventilation. He calculated that something in the air coming from patients suffering from something, That will be a kind of disease, suffering from, would not have harmed other patients. So I'm actually going to try and go with this one because I know where this harmed other patients thing is, and I'm quite sure is you suffer from, and it'll be some kind of a disease or a condition. And so we're in this sentence over here. We're looking for nouns, and one of them is probably a disease. Something in the air and patients suffering from something. So can you see air? Air is over there. So that's actually quite easy. They said in the air, streams over there, and they said in the air over there. So it's exactly the same thing. So what was in the air? This word, the strange word, pathogens. Here's the definition of pathogens. So it was the pathogens in the air. So it wasn't too bad because that preposition phrase helped you. Right, so then patients suffering from something would not have harmed other patients. The pathogens coming from the patients would not have harmed other patients. Patients suffering from what? Now there's no suffering. We're looking for a disease. Patients suffering from something. And here is the name of a disease. I don't know if you know it. It's quite a commonly known disease, tuberculosis. I can't tell you any other easy way to have spotted that one, because they really paraphrased the noun phrase. They said patient suffering from tuberculosis, and it was someone with tuberculosis. So it's a really strong paraphrase. But if you look at the nouns that we're looking for, there really aren't many over there. There it is, a noun, tuberculosis. This is actually a verb. Wards is the rooms. Ventilation systems, a patient suffering from ventilation systems. Room, no. So if you knew you were looking for a noun and just examined all of the nouns, you should have come to the conclusion that it was this one. So right, let's try and go back to this one then. I suspect this one is difficult. This guy, John Shaw Billings, influenced the architectural something of hospitals. We're looking for a noun. The architectural, this is an adjective, so we need a noun over there. And we're probably going to be over here. Here is hospitals. Architectural, I don't see. But I do see the design of ingeniously ventilated hospitals. The architectural design of hospitals. So the phrase was there. They had just put two adjectives inside there. Ingeniously ventilated, adverb, adjective. But the of hospitals was there. So I think you should have been able to get that. The design of hospitals. They've paraphrased this quite a lot. It's not like a passage one summary. They're actually trying to make it a little bit more difficult. Right, so we're going to move on to paragraph E now. He also found that the air in something in hospitals could change as often. The air in something in hospitals. So we're definitely in this sentence over here because we've got operating theatre, we've got air, and we're looking for a noun. And really the only noun left is we used that one, the air changes. We used this one, it's in the question. So it's only that one over there that we can really use. We use that noun. The wards in hospitals, hospital wards. They've just changed, it's like a noun phrase one into a noun phrase two. Switch them around, put a preposition in the middle, like we do in task one. So it can only be that. Hospital wards. It actually means hospital rooms. Wards means rooms, but it doesn't matter if you didn't understand it. It was the only really reasonable possibility. He suggests that energy use could be reduced by locating more patients in something areas. So we're going to put more patients in something areas. Please note, now we're looking for an adjective. This is the noun. More patients in something areas. Ah, there's energy. I didn't see it before. So we're over here. We're talking about the energy. We're looking for an adjective. Where are the adjectives? I'll highlight them all. So it's one of these. Now this could be areas. Possibly rooms, areas, so it could be single areas, but here they say are not appropriate. And here we're saying we want to put more patients in certain areas, so not single rooms. This also just means rooms, so this could be areas, so that's a distinct possibility. That's not areas, that's patients, and that's people, so that's not areas. So really it's either this one or it's this one, because those are the two adjectives that are there. And to choose which one, you need to actually just understand what he's saying. He's saying that we should put more patients in some areas. So we're not going to put more patients in single rooms. We're going to put more patients in communal areas, which is like same as the word community, which means many people. All right. The meaning there was very difficult. They are making this summary difficult, but the fact that you were looking for an adjective really, really helped you. So that must be communal. All right. Wow, this is actually quite a difficult summary. A major reason for improving ventilation was the demand from the something for protection against bad air, known as. Now that's a nice clue. I've spoken in, I think, Cambridge 12, 11, 13 about this known as. They use known as to introduce a new term. And there's various ways of doing it, of introducing a new term. So let's see if we can find that. Bad air known as something. And we're in this paragraph over here now. Can you see air or bad air? There it is over there, bad air. Now what I want you to notice is this dash. They often use this structure to give a definition after they introduce a new term. So instead of putting the known as before, instead of saying the threat of toxic air known as toxic air that spread disease known as miasmas, they put the miasmas first and then give the definition afterwards. So this dash is very important. It's performing the function of the known as. It's just that they switch it around. So this is the new term that they're introducing. There's the new term. There is the definition. I've covered this quite a lot in previous videos, Cambridge 11, 12, 13. How important the known as and useful the known as and similar phrases. So that's definitely our new term that they're introducing, miasmas. Right, the demand from the something for protection against bad air. Demand from the something for protection against bad air. Demand. Protect against, this whole thing is the protect against bad air. Who was demanding protection for bad air? Who's demanding? And it actually rests on this word over here, clamoring. Clamoring means demanding in a very loud way and complaining a lot and asking for something in a very loud and aggressive way. So it's a very difficult question because you needed to know what this was. But okay, maybe we can guess some other way. We're looking for a noun. Demand. Who demands? It's people usually demand. Much of this was driven by the public who were demanding buildings that could protection against. Not easy at all, but if you looked for a noun, there aren't many other possibilities in this whole thing. It's the public who was demanding, and that means demanding. So pretty difficult. Don't worry if you didn't get that one. They are trying to make this particularly difficult, this summary. It's definitely a passage 2 level of difficulty summary. The passage 1 summaries are definitely easier than this. These, what is these? The miasmas were blamed for the spread of disease for hundreds of years, including epidemics in London and Paris. I hope you know what epidemic means. It's when you get a lot of the same kind of disease at the same time. What happened in London and Paris? Epidemics of, there is the phrase over there, cholera outbreaks in London and Paris, epidemics of, but I'm afraid some of you might choose that. You can't have an epidemic of an outbreak because the outbreak and the epidemic, those are actually the synonyms. What was the disease? This is actually the disease, the cholera outbreaks. I don't like when IELTS does this because this, in this example, it's actually behaving like an adjective, but we needed a noun. But you needed to know that cholera was a disease, which many of you wouldn't have known. I think the way to get that was to look at the whole phrase, epidemics of something in London and Paris, cholera outbreaks in London and Paris, and then hopefully you would have put epidemic and outbreak together and then chosen that one. Wow, very difficult. Right, then let's move on. Firstly, we're going to just see if there's anything over here that we remember from the summary. Why they avoided hospitals in the 19th century? Maybe I remember hospitals, I remember 19th century. Suggestion that the popularity of tall buildings, I don't remember anything about tall buildings. A comparison between circulation of air in that building and modern standards. I do remember that. How short tested the circulation of air, again, an implication about advertising air conditioning. No. So 14, 16 and 17 have quite a lot of information that is familiar. Let's look at this. A comparison between the circulation of air in 19th century buildings and modern standards. Here's the modern buildings. Here's the comparison, as often as. The 19th century building is actually over there. So let's go and look at that. It's the sentence again over here. There's the comparison, similar to. So hopefully you could have connected those two, because they used the word modern. They were talking about the 19th century hospital wards. They were comparing the two, and they were talking about air changes. So you had seen that before. You looked at it pretty closely. So hopefully quite quickly you could find that this one was E. Right. This one was also familiar. How he tested the circulation of air in a 19th century building. We're talking about short. Short is over here. This is all still about the 19th century buildings. Still all about the air streams. Here is short. And how did he test it? We spent 3 years digitally modeling a design. We put pathogens in the airstreams. Modeled is like created an experiment. And we found that blah, 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 blah. So again, a lot of the keywords like air and airstreams could have taken you there. Short, unfortunately, it's everywhere. The tested wasn't there, and that was quite tricky. Digitally modeling means they made a computer-generated model. So that's the test. So I don't know if you would have been able to link those two up, but you should have been able to say that it was somewhere around in these paragraphs that we've been looking at, because this is all about the 19th century stuff. Please notice that that's today. So now they're moving on to talk about the present. So this is all 19th century stuff that starts over here, as we learned from the summary. So this was the test over here, paragraph D. And then again, we've got more 19th century stuff. So again, it's going to be in these 3 paragraphs that we've been looking at already. Why some people avoided hospitals. I remember we were talking about the public, that's people, and it would be a good guess to just go for F here, because this is the other 19th century paragraph. But try and see people or avoided and hospitals. It's difficult language. There's just a synonym for avoided. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. But you could probably guess F for this one. But that's actually our target sentence over there. To steer clear of means to avoid. Yes, I know, difficult vocabulary. But at this stage, you're getting short on time. It would have been a good guess just to go for F. But anyway, yes, it is F. That's the sentence over there. You needed to find something about people avoiding hospitals. So that's F. Right, and then now we're on to the most difficult questions. You're running out of time here, so all you can do is try and scan like crazy. Scan for tall buildings, scan for prestige, scan for advertising and air conditioning. Now, they can paraphrase that. They can say skyscrapers. They can paraphrase that. I wouldn't scan for that. Advertising is advertising. I don't think that they can really scan. Maybe paraphrase. Maybe they can. Air conditioning, I don't think you can paraphrase air conditioning. So something about tall buildings, advertising, air conditioning. Of course, you're not going to look at D, E, and F now, because they don't say you can use any one of these more than once. Please notice they didn't say that in this question. Tall buildings, advertising, air conditioning. Don't be afraid to guess. Watch the time. Tall buildings, can you see it? Can you see advertising? Can you see air conditioning? I saw air conditioning over there. But I see skyscrapers over there. That's interesting. That's tall buildings. I don't see advertising though. Let's look at this one. There's air conditioning again. Maybe marketing. So they did paraphrase advertising. Marketing. Air conditioning again. skyscrapers, air-conditioned skyscrapers. Wow, it's getting really confusing. All of the stuff is here. Then we move on, scan a bit more. More air conditioning. Skyscrapers is there. So it's actually everywhere. So that doesn't help us all. So now you need to really just read in detail. There's no other way to do it. A suggestion that the popularity of tall buildings is linked to prestige. Maybe you don't know what prestige is. Let's try this one. Advertising led to the large increase in the use of air conditioning. And that, as I said over here they mentioned advertising, air conditioning was over there. I wish I could have told you an easier way to find that, but there isn't. These are the Band 8, Band 9 questions. You needed to be able to read very quickly, look for advertising. Skyscrapers and tall buildings, skyscrapers and air conditioning is kind of everywhere, but this was the key for that one. Marketing, advertising, synonyms. So that one's B. I wish I could help you more on these two, but I don't see an easier way to do them. Finally, popularity of tall buildings is linked to prestige. Almost impossible to find. Native speaker will struggle to find this. Symbols of status. Status means prestige. So there's the tall buildings as symbols of prestige. But really, that was incredibly difficult. I don't know if I would have been able to do this perfectly in 20 minutes. It's actually got really difficult toward the end. These last two were very difficult. Okay, anyway, I hope it helped a bit. A couple of things to notice. IELTS loves choosing these scientific words. Pathogens, tuberculosis, cholera, miasmas. These are all technical medical words, and often IELTS loves to choose them. Secondly, 3 of these, we had actually seen it before, and they were in the summary. And then finally, the last 2 were just so difficult. You kind of had to get lucky or not lucky and spot the synonyms. All right, good. Thank you very much.